Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And in today's episode, takes place in our own front yard. Chicago's Field Museum alters their Native American displays in response to new regulations. And what exactly does this mean? Well, the Chicago's Field Museum has an entire hall dedicated to Native Americans and indigenous settlers of North America. And due to a change in the enforcement of federal regulations, museums now have to gain consent before they showcase objects that tie to ancestral heritage and funerary, so burial objects.
Yeah.
And what this is this is a long-standing point in the battle of basically tribes versus institutions, a battle that has been waged for over 30 years now, which is the NAGPRA, or Native American Graves and Repatriation Act, which stipulates that organizations, institutions, universities, museums have to repatriate Native American remains to the tribes in which they are descendant of. And this law has been in place to try and give control back to a lot of indigenous groups who don't like the studies and research that have been done to their ancestors. But the issue is, the law didn't really have any teeth. There was not a whole lot of enforcement. And over the course of those 30 years, we've seen a lot of instances where institutions fight actively against repatriation. In some call it the name of science, some call it the name of education, some don't believe in stewardship of artifacts with the groups they descend from. There's a lot of arguments that are made, but it
basically it's been 30 years of the United States having an honor system for, hey, we agreed as a country we not do this no more. You go not do this. And no one has moved off the start line. So what has happened is they've said, all right, if you have it and you're not giving it back, you either can't use it or you have to get consent.
You basically have to get consent to use it, which is huge.
Yeah. And so the museum here has to take down all of its Native American collections, or at least most of its Native American collections.
Only some of it. The some that is burial related or ancestrally related.
Yeah.
So it's very title.
But like a lot of stuff is being rearranged right now.
Well, yeah, they're also taking it as an opportunity to redesign the exhibit, because the exhibit is 30 plus years old as well.
Yeah. It's one of those things, like a lot of stuff has to go off the shelves right now because, hey, you don't have consent for that. Either give it up or get the tribes to admit that you deserve to have it, which, fun fact, almost none of them will ever do because you had 30 years to ask this question.
Yeah, they could have bit themselves in the ass with that one. If they could have been doing something like working with them, and having open dialogue and building positive relations, and they just chose not to.
They actively chose not to, and now this is an enforcement of that. And one of the more poignant cases that I talked about off screen when we were discussing this article and these issues is the example of Kennewick Man. And Kennewick Man is one of the most prominent examples of this law, NAGPRA, being in effect, because it went through the court systems for like 20 years before having a final resolution. I want to say in 2017 or 2018. It was very, very recent in the terms, considering this is a 30-year-old law. But the basis of it was there were these remains that were 10,000 years old, and there were so many tests done to these remains that a lot of tribes felt like it violated the remains. It violated that ancestor. It violated the spirit of that person because they did not consent to it, nor could they. And they wanted to repatriate the remains so they can honor that person and bury them properly. They buried Kennewick Man. Whereas the institution, on the other hand, claimed, using very specific language, that it was culturally unidentifiable, that there are no descendant tribes to repatriate the remains to, and as such, they are the best stewards for these remains. And that was the argument that was made while they were conducting destructive analysis on the remains. They were quite literally, in some cases, destroying pieces of Kennewick Man to study him.
Yeah, and Kennewick Man aside, one of the big reasons why the Field Museum's response to this is such a major thing is because the Field Museum in Chicago is in the top 20 for institutions in the United States of America with native remains in its collection. It is one of the 20 largest collections of indigenous peoples' remains. So their response to this, especially since they seem to be the first one responding to it, is going to set the tone as to whether or not this is going to be a new era of cooperation and transparency, or more of the same smoke and mirror games.
I will say, to their credit and to the people that I do personally know at the Field Museum, there are a lot of great people working to try and fix these issues and try and mediate the problems that are happening. And a lot of institutions are actually including repatriation rooms, like the Wisconsin State, not archives, they're a repository for artifacts. They have an entire warehouse. And they actually have a ritual room that was built in conjunction with the federally recognized tribes in Wisconsin, where when remains are repatriated, they're able to do their smoke ceremonies and they're able to do their religious ceremonies on site of the repository when they repatriate the remains, when they take the remains back into their possession. It is one of the coolest things in the world to see. And it is such a rare example of an institution taking the extra step to have positive relations and to build that better rapport with the tribes. And to their credit, a lot of tribes really do just want to have the story told properly. They want to be able to have a voice in this story after centuries of colonization and just oppression, to call it what it is. But yeah, this is an interesting one, and to see the law starting to be enforced by the Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, it's very, very interesting, and this is one of the reasons why, for the longest time, people have suggested having someone of indigenous heritage in that role, because they are the ones who control the policies, and I can't wait to see how other museums respond to this. Like the American Museum of Natural History in New York, and some of the other ones they have listed down below, like the Peabody
Harvard
Museum in Harvard.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think I already know what Harvard's response is going to be. I have no love for that institution.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great point for us to wrap up here. This is a very interesting article, and one that is very, very hot topic in our field currently. Those want to know what archaeologists are bickering about, this is it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.